Yo, Saf, back again. Another episode of Talk and Play Blurredcast. Thank you all for tuning back in with me. Hear me blurred out over some blurry shit. If you read the title, you know what time it is. I don't want to hear shit. We got spoilers in this mug. Y'all have plenty of time. I've been telling y'all over the past, I don't know how many Blurredcasts I have uploaded since Spider-Man No Way Home came out, but I've been telling y'all this review is coming. I know people in my life personally who still have not seen the movie. That's they bad. You know what I'm saying? Let you know right now. You don't want no spoilers? Just pause this, come back to it after you see the movie. But I gotta give the people what they're looking for. I also gotta get this off my chest. So after I play my intro music, we jumping in. It's the Spider-Man No Way Home review by myself, Brian Saf, for the Talk and Play Blurredcast community, or whatever name I'm going to decide to give my listeners. Let's go. So, Spider-Man No Way Home. No need to bullshit you and try to make it seem like I'm about to shit on this movie. I am not. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a good movie to me. Definitely my favorite of Tom Holland's, Spider-Man's. Like this particular movie really, really did a good job at like bringing together the entire essence of Spider-Man that has been spread out over the course of, I don't know, 10, 12 movies now between Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland, and then, his appearances in the Avengers movie. Like, I want to say that's like 10 movies or so, but I'm so glad that we at a point now where we get to see all of these Spider-Mans like be on screen together and completely embody what it means to be Spider-Man and Peter Parker as a character. Of course, this movie, made the fans have the discussion of like who's the best Spider-Man or who's their favorite Spider-Man. I like all these motherfuckers. Like, I think Tobey really nailed it when he came out as Spider-Man, and I feel like his Spider-Man definitely kicked things off for us. It's the Spider-Man that I grew up on. It's as far as the movies are concerned, because those came out when I was a teenager. So I actually grew up on the Spider-Man from like the comics and the cartoons, whatever. But I'm saying, like, as far as live action Marvel movies, Tobey is the one. He's kicked this shit off for us or whatever. MCU probably wouldn't be what it is today had not Tobey been so successful with his version of the Spider-Man's, had Sony not written that character to be what it was. I think for me, though, like that version of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, it lacks a little bit of like quirkiness and nerdiness. Like, yes, Peter was, the smart, like, not reclusive, but introverted kind of person or whatever in those movies. And, we saw shit change as though that series progressed, but it never was really giving me the whole vibe of Spider-Man where, every other line was something funny or witty. He was fighting his villains and shit. Like, I remember watching Spider-Man as a kid and like reading the comic books as a kid. And Spider-Man used to have so many witty remarks that the villains would be like, I just need to find a way to close this motherfucker's mouth and then I could beat him. Like, I didn't really get that from Tobey. Tobey was more on the serious side, which is cool because at the time that gave us some kind of contrast in between the Spider-Man that we knew from comic books and cartoons to seeing that transition onto live, action with the screens and television and movie shit or whatever. And that's dope to me. And then for whatever reason, they decided to shift focus and give Andrew Garfield an opportunity to be Spider-Man. And that one was pretty good as well. I enjoyed the Amazing Spider-Man series for what it was. I feel like as far as writing Peter Parker, how they wrote his character, they shifted away from how Tobey portrayed it and kind of gave Andrew Garfield the opportunity to play up just how fucking intelligent Peter is. And he really, really did that. Like, I feel like out of the three, Andrew Garfield really showcased just how smart Peter Parker is, because he's a fucking genius. And that to me was like, all right, yeah, dope. This is good. He also was, pretty witty and quirky or whatever. And until Tom Holland popped up on the screen, I was like, okay, I think Andrew Garfield probably has nailed Peter Parker the best just as a character. Only thing I was like, about was the physical appearance. Like, Tom's hair, it don't give Peter Parker vibes. Like, I know that's stupid, or what's the word I'm looking for? I know that is like very, very petty of me, because that shit don't really matter. It's just hair. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know, when you put the Spider-Man mask on with that kind of hair, like, why the head don't be looking puffy? Like, I don't know, just something about like Tom's physical appearance didn't necessarily give me the full Spider-Man vibes. And that's okay, because like I said, I still enjoy the movies. We roll over into Tom though, whole package. The man, he got the quips, the quirkiness, the nerdiness, the fucking witty comebacks, the physical looks, Peter Parker like I would expect Peter Parker to look, the immaturity. He really embodied that very well. Like, Spider-Man, especially in this movie, I was like, damn, Peter is making some really, really like selfish decisions, but not selfish as in like it's all for personal gain, just more like, nigga, do you understand what is at stake right now? You worried about your friends getting into MIT, but like the world has been invaded by all of these villains from other dimensions that you brought here because you was being selfish with a spell that Doctor Strange ended up botching because you kept changing it so many times. Like, but then when Strange would make comments like, yeah, this is a kid, I'll be forgetting he's a teenager and shit like that, I'm like, yes, I need that reminder as well, which to me means he's doing a good job. Tom is doing a good job at portraying the innocence behind Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and the decisions that he makes. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the reason Spider-Man is a hero is because of the innocence that he carries from being, naive and still trying to grow up and mature as a human being, while also being fucking Spider-Man and having all of these moral dilemmas to be, accountable for and to have to make decisions for as a kid. So I'm like, Tom is Spider-Man. He is Peter Parker. I feel that from him. Tobey did an amazing job. Andrew Garfield did a great job as well. But like, if we talking about total package Spider-Man, it's Tom. That's just my opinion that I'm adding to the conversation, because I know y'all like to, oh, who's the best, or which one's your favorite? So there it is. They all have a place in my heart as fantastic Spider-Man. Like I said, Tobey kicked shit off for us and really endeared us back to the storyline of Spider-Man. I fuck with that. Andrew gave us a different side of him and really showcased just how intelligent and intellectual Spider-Man is. I fuck with that. And then Tom came, like he had watched every single Spider-Man movie before his front to back and merged all that shit together and gave us like a physical embodiment of what we've known Spider-Man and Peter Parker to be. So I'm satisfied. I can't really pick and choose which one's my favorite or whatever. I feel like they all are good to me. I fuck with all of them. This movie also made me like really appreciate Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, honestly, because I watched, his series of movies or whatever. And like I said, still a little bit of a disconnect because of the way they wrote the character or whatever. But they kind of made up for that shit in No Way Home. I'm looking at that shit like, damn, I really need to go back and watch Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies, like especially knowing what's going on with Venom and Carnage and Morbius coming out soon. Like, I need to go back and rewatch like Andrew's acting, and then the story of his Spider-Man that he brought along to No Way Home, like, really made me want to revisit his movies and, like, not give it another chance because I thought they was good movies, but like get back into them and reappreciate them in a different light. Now that I've seen how things have progressed in his story based on whatever they gave us from No Way Home. So definitely gonna do that because Andrew Garfield deserves more for his portrayal of Spider-Man. I'm glad that this particular movie has caused people to be like myself and kind of realize just how good he was as a Spider-Man, because like, I don't know, the fans was a little iffy. They was a little iffy on Andrew Garfield's movies and his whole portrayal of Spider-Man, but like, this really shifted people's energy with that to a more positive, accepting one. I appreciate that because, like I said, he did a good job to me, and this portrayal and in this movie really made me, think about it again and be like, he actually is good and those movies are great, and I need to go back and get back into them so that I'm not lost in the sauce whenever they eventually throw him back on screen with the villains from his universe, Venom and Carnage and now Morbius when it comes out. All those villains are in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man universe. So eventually they gonna ask this man to come back at least one more time for some kind of fight, between these villains. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully they make it happen sooner rather than later. Speaking of the villains, though, I really enjoyed how they decided to work this whole rewrite of everything that's going on in Sony's, Spider-Verse, since everything happened with the Disney deal and the Marvel deal and shit like that. Like, because if you think about it, we went from these characters have died in the movie, like Norman Osborn, Green Goblin died. Same thing with Jamie Foxx and Electro, his character died. Like, most of these villains, Dr. Octopus died. Like, they were killed in the movies that they participated in with Spider-Man's or their version of Spider-Man, whether it be Toby or Andrew or whatever. But due to this movie, they're not dead anymore. And I feel like that's dope. I don't really see a lot of comics and nerd, blurred, geek outlets talking about it. But I feel like this is dope because it kind of lends to how things actually transpire in the comic books and in the cartoon series that actually inspired these fucking live action movies. Saying that because if you think about it, right, in the comic books, in the cartoon series, these characters never like die. Spider-Man always finds a way to subdue them. They go away for a little bit and then they pop back up later on in the series, whether it be through some kind of team up or they just get out of jail and find a way to get stronger and get back on Spider-Man's nerves. Like, they never die. So I really appreciate that they have taken that same step in the movie, you know what I'm saying? Instead of beating their ass, they would fix their ass or cured their ass. What's the comedic line that they used? They cured their asses or whatever. I really fuck with that because not only is it more true to, like I said, the comics and the cartoon series, but then on top of that, that gives us opportunity to do just like the comic books and the cartoon series and have these characters reprise their role once again as villains in the Spider-Man universe, doing villain shit. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing Dr. Octopus again. They give us the actual Sinister Six, lineup, because if you notice, wasn't quite those villains, but they do what they want to do. That's fine. And really, take on the Spider-Man again, or I don't know. I'm looking forward to, or I would like for those characters to come back and those villains to be seen again now that they're not dead. And it don't have to be in like some super large capacity. It could be something menial, as in like, oh, this is an opening fight scene or whatever, and it's a villain that you recognize again. And Spider-Man finds a way to subdue him, and then we go on with the storyline and another villain is introduced, something like that. I just like that they did the comic book cartoon thing and did not kill anybody. They just fixed them. They cured their asses. And that gives us opportunity to see them in the MCU or just in the Sony Spider-Verse, the Sony Marvel Spider-Verse once again. I think that's dope. I also like with the villains, Electro specifically, that they made him more source material related, more canon related, because that whole blue Avatar Smurf shit that they had going on in Andrew Garfield's films or whatever, like I was not necessarily rocking with that. And I know other fans had an issue with it as well. And I know it was even so much of a thing to where in press runs, you would hear Jamie Foxx make note, you know what I'm saying, and speak on the fact that these people made him blue and he wasn't feeling that, and he was happy to be getting his body back in No Way Home, and just really just give us a better performance as far as Electro is concerned. I really fuck with that. And then on top of that, if you notice, like whenever he used his powers towards a certain like power level or whatever, he would get the star-shaped electric thunderbolt mask over his face that, you know, you would see drawn in the comic books and in the cartoon series, because Electro had like a whole villain outfit or whatever, but obviously because of the way the story progressed in No Way Home or whatever, like we didn't really get all of that. But I still like that they paid homage to that actual iteration of Electro by, like I said, giving Jamie Foxx's Electro that star-shaped thunderbolt lightning bolt mask or whatever every time he like charged up past a certain point and used his abilities. Like that was dope. Just a little shit like that really endears me to like whatever Sony and Marvel do. Like when they pay attention to source material and they find a way to portray it on scene or on screen in a cool way, I always feel like that shit is dope. And I think they did it again with Electro. They also did a really good job at humanizing the villains. Like Sony, what I've noticed about them, they really trying to do their best to blur the line between villain and hero. Like if you notice, Spider-Man had, or Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man had his time period in his franchise where that nigga was doing some off the wall shit that could really paint him as a villain in certain lights, depending on how you looked at things. And then in all of these villain movies, whether it be Venom 1, Venom 2, Morbius, also they make mention of that in the trailer. Like they're intentional about making sure that we understand like these characters are not like inherently evil. They just are self-serving in a way that kind of makes them villains. But if you really deep dive and like pay closer attention to their stories, you realize they're more anti-heroes. They do crazy bad shit or whatever, but it's not necessarily to harm people or to cause destruction or dismay. It's more just because they're self-serving and they don't care about who who gets hurt along the way as they try to fulfill their personal goals and their personal opinions, and they try to push forward their personal messages and agendas. Kind of like Jonah Jameson, Mr. Daily Bugle himself. Like that man is a fucking monster as far as the propaganda pieces that he does and puts out on Spider-Man, and how much he tries to spread this fake exaggerated news to paint Spider-Man as this villain. But then at the end of the day, he has his own personal reasons for doing that. A lot of it is money motivated and clout motivated, but then also a lot of that is rooted in, you know, jealousy and envy of Spider-Man being this super powered vigilante. Meanwhile, he has to be confined to spreading news through, you know, his outlets or whatever, and not necessarily being able to affect change in a real way like Spider-Man is. I mean, not saying that the Daily Bugle doesn't affect change because he definitely got supporters on his side. Now, people definitely think Spider-Man is a menace and a terrorist and all this other shit. But what I'm saying is, like, he can't go out there and whip nobody ass and, like, really take these crazy high-powered villains off the street. He can just report about it and try to get public opinion on his side so that things can sway in the direction of fixing itself. But Spider-Man actually out there doing the work. And I think Jonah is, a little bit jealous of that. But like I said, that doesn't make him necessarily a villain or a bad person or whatever. It's just very, very selfish and self-serving the way he pushes these agendas to try to make Spider-Man look like something he's not. But yeah, they did, like I said, a great job, in my opinion, of humanizing the quote-unquote villains, especially the doctors and the scientists. Like, we really got to see in No Way Home, like, these people just have issues because their experiments or their things that went wrong in their experiments that caused them to be the way that they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at Norman Osborn, there's a extra person pretty much living in his head because that experiment went wrong. Same thing with Dr. Octopus. The fucking tentacles started taking over his fucking brain because the chip in the back of his neck that he created to prevent that very thing from happening got fried or burnt out some way. So it's like, these people ain't necessarily bad. They just doing bad shit because circumstances have led them to that. So I, like I said, really like the idea of them curing them and putting them back where they belong so that they could kind of give them a second chance at being in the Spider-Verse, for one, and just being the people that they say that they are. Like, Dr. Osborn is not evil inherently. It's that other person that's living inside of his head. Same thing with Dr. Octopus. Same thing with Lizard. They're not inherently evil people. They just let their science and their work lead them down a path of self-servingness. That word, self-servingness? I don't know. But of being self-serving in a way that paints them as evil or villains the more they go out into the world and try to assert themselves so that they could be successful in their endeavors. As far as the actual movie and storyline, though, big surprise for me because I wasn't fucking with the movie trailer view reactions and breakdowns and Easter egg point outs and early spoilers and leaked footage and leaked content information. I wasn't fucking with none of that. When y'all was on Instagram making y'all reels, breaking down piece by piece, scene by scene, the trailers and shit and what it means and what we're gonna get from the movie and stuff, I went out of my way to ignore that shit because I just want to sit in the fucking theater with the rest of the Spider-Man nerds and just enjoy the movie for what it was. So Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, coming back and actually playing Spider-Man's lawyer in the fucking movie, that shit was a complete surprise to me, and I was super excited to see it. There had already been conversation happening around the Daredevil series and I guess movie franchise being rebooted at some point in time. And so for him to show up in this movie, and then it was for something that made sense, playing Spider-Man's lawyer because Matt Murdock is a lawyer in his lore and backstory or whatever, and he's from New York. Shout out to Hell's Kitchen and all that shit. Like, it's dope that they continue to merge and be canon and source material referencing when it comes to this stuff, because at some point in the comic books and in the cartoon series, yes, Spider-Man does team up with the Defenders of Hell's Kitchen. So it's dope that we have Matt Murdock in this movie, portrayed by Charlie Cox, especially because they had already been having discussions about bringing Charlie back to reprise his role as Daredevil in a more MCU fashion or whatever, but like not just a cameo in No Way Home, his actual Daredevil series coming back in some way, whether it be movie or a television series. So this is big because it's confirmation pretty much that, like, yeah, we're going to see Matt Murdock Daredevil in the MCU in a large way as the MCU moves forward through its phases, whether that be a movie or another, streamable series, most likely to end up on Disney Plus. We don't know yet, but I'm still excited nonetheless. Like, that was a really, really big surprise for me. I was like, oh shit, it happened. Like, this motherfucker is on the screen right now and he's being Spider-Man's lawyer. And then on top of that, Spider-Man don't know that this nigga is Daredevil yet. So I'm like, the possibilities are endless at this point. But yeah, that was a very, very nice surprise and a welcomed addition to the storyline for me. I also really appreciated like the whole exchange between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. We really got to see that, small piece of the earlier MCU phase, with Endgame and stuff kind of continue itself out into what we have in Spider-Man No Way Home, because at this point now, Doctor Strange does not remember who Peter Parker is as Spider-Man, so he'll still have his recollections of doing shit with Spider-Man. He just won't know who the fuck it is under the mask, and that's cool to me. Like, long as Spider-Man is not gone, Peter Parker will always be, and that shit, it'll be nothing for them to like just take the mask off. Hey, I'm Peter Parker, and reintroduce themselves again. But I really like their whole interaction, their exchange. Doctor Strange gave me like, mentor vibes a little bit, like telling Peter you could just call the admissions people and try to convince them to reconsider your denial from MIT. Like, you don't have to do this whole spell shit. But I also noticed about Doctor Strange that he was like really over all of this bullshit. Almost felt like he wasn't trying his hardest to like stop things, because he knew that, because he understands fate in the multiverse in a different way. Like, he kind of just knew like, this shit is annoying to watch this kid make all these dumbass decisions, but it has to play out like this because fate, and I can't intervene in a real way. I just have to do enough to push this man forward through his own personal story. And I felt like that was dope. Like, even if that's not what was going through Doctor Strange's head, or why he had the attitude that he had with, everything or whatever, I still feel like that added to the overall story of not only Spider-Man but Doctor Strange. Because if you've seen a trailer for Multiverse of Madness, then we're dealing with fate and shit again. So I just kind of feel like with the story or whatever, they kind of wrote it in a way to where it's almost like he let Spider-Man win in some of them scenarios. Like, there's no real way, in my opinion, where there's no real way that Doctor Strange is outsmarting Spider-Man when it comes to magic and shit. Like, I just feel like, especially when they were in the mirror dimension or whatever, I feel like he kind of let Spider-Man win. Like, we got to see some of Spider-Man's genius there, and he did all the geometry and shit in his head or whatever and figured out a way to capture Doctor Strange. But I also feel like because Doctor Strange is a cosmic being at this point, he understands how timelines and fate have to progress in a certain way. So he really wasn't, like, giving his A game. He really wasn't like going there to try to like stop Spider-Man. It was more so like, I'm doing this so you understand that you have to do things a certain way or whatever. And given how like What If, the Disney Plus series, kind of played out or whatever, I'm like, if that's how they intended to write it, and if I'm picking up on that correctly, I'm like, damn, that's dope. Just because we're gonna see what happens in Multiverse of Madness as far as fate is concerned, and why sometimes things just have to play out the way it is. That What If series really, really made me understand that part of MCU and why things just can't happen, especially with the way that the Eternals kind of explained to us in their movie why they had not been getting involved in these, world-ending conflicts, like Thanos dropping by and trying to snap half the universe out of existence or whatever. Like, fate and the natural order and progression of things is a big, like, underlying theme of this particular phase of the MCU. So I'm just glad that, or I don't know, because I don't even know if I'm picking up on that right, but if I am, like, I feel like that's dope that they gave Doctor Strange this like melancholy ass, aggravated ass attitude. Cause I'm just sitting there in the movie theater like he know he can't really stop Spider-Man because this kind of shit just has to happen because fate, and you don't want to fuck with the natural order and the natural flow of time and shit like that. So, cause this Doctor Strange he talking about like subduing Spider-Man, that should have been nothing for him. But like I said, I really enjoyed that part, or I really enjoyed that the movie made me think about the multiverse and this phase of the MCU and Spider-Man, Doctor Strange in that way. Also, I really enjoyed the whole plot line with Norman Osborn / Green Goblin and that whole like split personality thing. I ain't gonna lie. There's a point in time where I was in the movie theater like, oh damn, like I'm on Aunt May's side. Like we gotta fix this nigga, we gotta help this nigga. Like he was conning me. Like I was in the trenches of this nigga is good at this role. Like Sam Raimi, or am I saying that right? Sam Raimi, like he really played that character well to the point where I was like, is it real or is it like another game? I was in a state of belief and disbelief as well as confusion and like not knowing whether I should trust this nigga or not, all the way up until we got to Happy's apartment or whatever, and I could see like, oh yeah, he conning the fuck out of them. He finna turn the tables on them before you know what I'm saying, Spider-Man get a chance to do these great things where he's curing their asses. So it's like I was in the theaters like really enjoying that. I was like, it could go either way. Either he's being real and the good Norman Osborn is taking control of his body at certain points in time and giving aid to Peter Parker and Spider-Man and trying to seek help from them, or the evil Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, is, you know, long conning the fuck out of them and they about to turn up. Obviously, it was Green Goblin, the evil Norman Osborn the whole time. But I just like that piece of the story being added because it kind of, like I said, lended more to the source material of the comic books and the series where, yeah, Dr. Osborn is like, there's two personalities living inside his body. And at times, you know, the good Norman Osborn is able to push through and get messages across, and then at times it is literally just the Green Goblin playing a role so that he can advance his own agenda. I really appreciate them adding that piece to the actual story and like letting that very, very important characteristic from Green Goblin as a character just shine through in the movie, because we got some of that in Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but at that point it was clear like Goblin has completely possessed Norman's body and that's a wrap on the good Norman. We just evil there. But in this iteration of it in No Way Home, they showed the duality and the struggle that, you know, Norman really faces on a day-to-day, blacking out and being Green Goblin, causing all this destruction, and then waking up after Green Goblin is, you know, tired and just being like, damn, what the fuck did I do? I ain't mean to do all this shit. I need help. Somebody fix me. Like, that was some good good storyline there. And it led us to Aunt May's death, which completely got me or whatever. I wasn't expecting her to die in the movie. I mean, I kind of felt like she had to, but then I also felt like because like we didn't really have an Uncle Ben in any of Tom Holland's like Spider-Man movies, like Uncle Ben's pretty much non-existent in his universe. I just felt like, oh, they're gonna let May live and she gonna rock and we gonna be good. Like we got this younger hot Aunt May or whatever, like I'm cool with this. But they gave her the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" line and they took her out. And I was in the theater like, no, say it ain't so. I thought she was gone, like in the beginning after the bomb blew up and all the debris fell or whatever. Then when she got up, I was like, all right, she's straight. She just need to catch her breath a little bit or whatever. But then the blood on Peter's hands and all this other shit. I'm like, oh damn, she fell back down, got real tired. I'm like, oh no, it's looking bleak. And then it happened. I'm laughing, but sad story, man. I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't want it to happen. On the flip side, though, we got an opportunity to watch, Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, Peter Parker number 3 at this point, I believe. We got to watch him redeem himself. Like, we saw what happened in his franchise where Gwen Stacy pretty much fell to her death. The spider web caught her at the very last second after she hit the ground and bounced back up from all of the inertia flying through her body from that fall. But in this movie, we got to see Andrew Garfield save, Zendaya, or I'm sorry, save MJ. And that shit warmed my heart. It made me feel so good. Watching her fall, my fucking heart was in my toenails. I was like, no, they cannot kill Mary Jane. I won't accept it. Like, they can't do this. This movie will be trash if they kill Zendaya. But Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, he jumped, did what he needed to do, caught her or whatever. I was welling up. I ain't gonna lie, I was in the theater about to drop a couple tears. I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, we just, well, we're not just, but we witnessed what happened with Gwen in the Amazing Spider-Man series with Andrew Garfield. So to see them like kind of bring that back and save Tom Holland Spider-Man's MJ, to save that Peter Parker's MJ, that shit was beautiful, especially after Tom was about to catch her on the fall, but then, the glider from Green Goblin came by and swept them up. I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? But Andrew jumped in, shot that web, caught. It was beautiful. Y'all seen what happened. If you haven't, why are you still listening? But I loved it. I love the redemption and, that Peter Parker getting a chance to do something that he failed at doing in his actual universe. That was beautiful to me. And then just as a whole, like, I really liked the bond and the relationship that the 3 Spider-Men created between each other. Like, they live a life, as these, superpowered teenagers, and I guess adult for Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but they live a life that only they can really understand and speak to in a really direct way when it comes to the trauma that they experience, the heartache, the challenges, the decision making that they have to do. So I'm glad that they was able to come together and kind of like play therapists for one another and like really help each other cement that they are doing the right thing, even though they've experienced so much loss and grief along the way. Like on the Statue of Liberty, where Toby was telling Andrew like he is amazing and shit like that. Not only was that a dope like thing to say to him, because positive reinforcement, especially from your literal self, is like very, very important, and it's such a powerful tool to help you progress through life. But then on top of that, like, it's kind of like a callback to the actual Marvel cinematic universe and Spider-Verse that Marvel has built out with Sony, because Andrew Garfield is the Amazing Spider-Man. Like, that's his Spider-Man title. That is the storyline of the Spider-Man franchise as a whole that Andrew's actual movies mimics the most, or pulls most of his source material from. So that in itself was dope. But just them being able to bond over their, lived experiences and their shared experiences across this multiverse, and really be a support system for one another and kind of help rebuild each other. Like, that shit was dope to me. Like, that also added a humanizing element to the 3 Spider-Man that I feel like was missing up until now, because they were out just being Spider-Man, doing what Spider-Man's supposed to do. But what Marvel has chosen to do in this phase of the MCU is kind of show us the mental, emotional, and physical strain that this job of being these superheroes puts on you. So it was kind of dope that they not only chose to do that with Spider-Man, but then they incorporated that same plot point into the other two Spider-Man and giving them this opportunity to like have conversation and uplift each other and make sure they impart wisdoms on each other. Like the whole conversation that they were having in, Doctor Strange's lair or whatever, where they were trying to brainstorm, or they was building all of the shit that they were going to use to cure the villains or whatever. Like, it was dope of Toby to, tell Andrew, like, hang in there on the dating thing or whatever. Like, it took me and Mary Jane a while, but we got to a place where we are really good and I can go out and do my Spider-Man thing and she's understanding or whatever. Like, that was dope to me. Like I said, the Statue of Liberty scene was dope, and Andrew playing chiropractor for Tom because of his back and all the web swinging that they do. Like, that's dope. Like, they really did a good job at humanizing all of the characters, especially the villains, but also the Spider-Man. Like, phenomenal. The scene where Tom Holland loses, Aunt May or whatever, and Zendaya, and I keep using these actors and actresses' real names, but that's so y'all know who I'm talking about. But when, MJ and Ned let, the other two, Peter to Tom, his little spot to get away, like them just sharing that stories and exchanging those memories of like Uncle Ben's death and the things that they said to one another. That shit was just dope. Like, I don't think Tom would have been able to pull himself together after Aunt May passing or whatever enough to stop these villains had, Peter 1 and 2, I guess, or had Toby and Andrew not been there to like kind of help them. I felt like it was dope. Like, Toby was like, I could sense that he kind of just need my help like really bad right now. So can you take me to him? And like Andrew was right on board. Like, yeah, I get this feeling like he going through something and he need us. And that shit was A1 because he definitely needed them. He couldn't have stopped the villains without him because three geniuses, and Zendaya is also genius in this movie, or MJ and Ned. They all MIT level geniuses. So like, definitely needed that support system and that bond. I'm glad that they did that. Like, we got extra pieces of stories that we thought was pretty much done. Like, we knew Toby wasn't coming back before this movie, and Andrew Garfield is up in the air, but they were still able to incorporate the groundwork that those stories and those series had already made and put it right on in No Way Home, line it right on up with what's happening with Tom and his life. And that was just really dope to me, especially because we got to see the growth and maturity between the Spider-Mans. Like, if you notice, all three of the Spider-Men are in different phases of their life. Like, Toby is clearly the oldest. He's dealt with the most as far as, being a Spider-Man and fighting all the super villains and shit like that, and, losing Uncle Ben and stuff like that. Then you got Andrew, who is right behind him as far as age and place in life. He's still trying to figure out what he's going to do as far as a love interest, but, he's done with school and shit like that, and he's living his Spider-Man life. And then we have Tom coming right up off of them right after that. Just graduated high school, wanted to go to college, but of course, after the spell Doctor Strange just put on the world or whatever, he's more source material Spider-Man than ever, just living his day-to-day life in a regular one-bedroom apartment in New York. He about to get a job at the Bugle, taking pictures of himself and selling them to Jonah Jameson. Like, we know what happens after that because we kind of seen it in Tobey Spider-Man, which, like I said, dope, because we get to see the difference in life and perspective and just where they are. Like, Toby Spider-Man is the OG. Andrew is right after that, and then Tom is the new guy on the scene. And you can literally see that within their characters just in No Way Home and where they are based on what they described about their lives in their conversation between the Spider-Man. But yeah, outside of all of that, the dope storyline and all that, I really enjoyed the cinematography of the movie. I got a chance to see it in 3D and regular D. That's what I call the standard edition, regular D. Everything about it was like super dope. The cinematography of the 3D with the special effects and all that shit was fired. The bridge scene was dope because of the 3D. The Statue of Liberty scene was dope. All of the fighting scene was dope. The mirror dimension where Doctor Strange was trying to get Peter to give him back the little box so he can send everybody back home. Like, all that shit was phenomenal, well shot. It really worked in 3D, but then it also looked really, really good in regular D. But Marvel never really lacks with that. They always come correct when it comes to the special effects and the high quality of the scenes. All this shit looking real, but of course, this is a review. I have to make mention of that stuff because it is a very, very important part of the movie. People be calling this shit trash if it look like something that's supposed to be on, I don't know, like CW or something. But yeah, that was dope. The fight at the Statue of Liberty was definitely my favorite scene. That group swing that they did where they finally stopped and spoke to each other and got on the same page about what they're gonna do and work as a team in order to take the villains down. That shit was fucking phenomenal. Them jumping into the air, just all swinging off each other's spider webs, and group attacking the villains and trying to keep MJ and Ned out of harm's way. All that shit was dope. I really, really enjoyed that scene. They still found a way to pay homage to Miles Morales, which I thought was really, really dope. When Jamie Foxx and Andrew Garfield, Electro and Spider-Man or Peter Parker 3, when they were having a conversation about Electro thinking maybe it's a black kid up under that mask, thinking he was black because, he was fighting in the hood and shit like that. I felt like that was dope. They straight up said there's a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. And we all know they talking about Miles. Shout out to Miles Morales. And that's another thing that I liked about this movie. It kept up with the same Marvel comedy humor that we used to. The wittiness, the one-liners. Jamie Foxx especially getting his, comedic lines in there. Telling Ned it's just a tree dog. Or saying at the power, or what was that field that they was in when we first get to see Electro on screen or whatever, and he helped or Sandman helped Spider-Man take him down, and they standing there having a conversation about it, and Jamie's like, y'all just gonna stand here and act like I ain't butt ass naked. And Sandman talking about, I am. I'm gonna just pretend like you ain't naked, bro. I thought all that was dope. They do a good job at being funny and comical in these scripts with the MCU, and it's always at a time when you don't necessarily expect them to have humor in the scene, but funny as usual. And then just from a blurred Marvel blurred standpoint, I really enjoyed seeing the Stark nanotech Spider-Man suit and all it could do. I'm pretty sure at this point I can go ahead and safely confirm that the Stark nanotech Spider-Man suit is definitely my favorite. The one where we get to see the extra 4 Spider-Man legs come out and pretty much do what Dr. Octopus's tentacles do. I'm low-key like a little tech junkie. I like tech, so seeing the Stark tech suit really aid Spider-Man in the way they did, that was dope. Because when Dr. Octopus ripped off that piece of the suit and the nanotech literally merged with the tentacles and not only improved them, but then turned around on the flip side and gave Spider-Man control of the tentacles, because obviously Stark's tech is a lot better than whatever the fuck Dr. Octopus had cooking up. That's why his shit failed in the Tobey Maguire movies. That's why the chip was fried now, because the tech wasn't up to par. But Stark's tech definitely was. And I feel like low key Tony saved the day with that. Like just the functionality of the Stark nanotech, you know what I'm saying, that played a huge role in this movie as a whole. Like, we wouldn't have been able to stop Dr. Octopus without it. Like, and we wouldn't have been able to keep him under our control without that. Like, shout out to Tony Stark, rest in peace, my guy. But it was dope seeing the Stark nanotech suit. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's my favorite suit at this time. I really like when Spider-Man is in combat and, you know, the Stark tech shit is talking to him in the suit and the tentacles come out and shit. And even seeing that, I did not know that the nanotech from his suit could do that to Dr. Octopus's tentacles. And now I wonder what other tech that he can control just by letting the nanotech from his suit like take over whatever. It was dope. I really appreciated that, just as, you know, a Marvel blurred and a little tech head. But yeah, overall, fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it. It's really, really high on my list of favorite Spider-Man movies. Like, if I had to rank, I don't know, I'm looking at maybe the number 1 or 2 spot, because I still have a love and appreciation for Spider-Verse that I feel like no Spider-Man movie is gonna beat. But this one came really, really close, and I'm still on the fence. So if I want to put it as my favorite Spider-Man movie or number 2 right up underneath Into the Spider-Verse, I think after Into the Spider-Verse 2 comes out, I'll be able to make like a clear decision on that, because obviously it'll be continuing the storyline. This movie, No Way Home, Noah, definitely left me wanting more. Like, I'm wondering at this point if anyone from S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers will remember or figure out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker again now that, you know, Doctor Strange has cast his spell. Because if you remember, the whole reason the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. knew who Peter Parker was underneath that Spider-Man mask was because S.H.I.E.L.D. had already gathered the intel and filed it somewhere for them to just open up a little computer file or a, I don't know, a manila folder and just look up the information. So I wonder if, you know, once we need Spider-Man again to join the Avengers in some kind of capacity, will they just do that again and figure it out? Will that undo Doctor Strange's spell? Like, what's going to happen? Because Peter Parker is Spider-Man is logged into a S.H.I.E.L.D. computer somewhere. Like, we know that, because Nick Fury told us already. So I'm wondering if we'll figure that out again. And then I also noticed that we did not get a new Spider-Verse villain in this movie. Meaning, like, if you think about it, like, we got Tobey and Andrew's like villains from their movies. Like Dr. Octopus and Goblin and Sandman are from Tobey's movies. And then Electro and Lizard are from Andrew's movies. But the only villain that we have, you know, thus far, we got Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, and then we got Mysterio in, you know, Far From Home. And, you know, he had this little moment at the beginning of the movie in No Way From Home or No Way Home. But we didn't get a brand new villain. So I'm like wondering, like, what we gonna do next? Like, who are we gonna get now that, you know, the cutscene is out there? We see that. We saw it at the end of the movie. If you stayed past the credits like I did, you saw the symbiote is now in the MCU, is now in Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. That little piece of symbiote was able to escape Doctor Strange's spell. And we have a Flash Gordon in No Way Home. So will the symbiote find Flash Gordon at MIT and turn him into, Venom for MCU and Tom Holland Spider-Man, or is it going to be something else with a symbiote, mutate and evolve now that it's in a new universe and become Scream or something like that? I don't know. There's plenty of possibilities. We could even get anti-Venom. Like, I just want to know, or I'm just curious to see what happens next, being that No Way Home did not introduce us to any new villains for Tom Holland's, Spider-Man run. I also want to know what's next as far as, the Spider-Verse characters as a whole, because we haven't got Black Cat at all. Like, I know they tried to bring Felicia Hardy in Andrew Garfield's, Spider-Man series, but that got, canceled at some point, and they still claim to be working on a solo film for Black Cat, but it's time at this point. Like, we need Black Cat on the screen. Not only is she one of the sexiest Spider-Verse characters out, but she is very, very pivotal in helping Spider-Man, mature and make better decisions and things like that, because she's an anti-hero herself. But then on top of that, they have this whole love interest thing happen where they start, fucking around at some point. And of course, that's going to help shape Spider-Man. You cannot read a Spider-Man comic book or watch a Spider-Man television series without Black Cat, because she plays a huge role in the story at some point in time. Like, her arc is like not only one of the more well-known Spider-Man arcs, but like I said, one of the most important ones. So it's time for her to be on screen. Whenever they ready to push out this Black Cat movie, we're going to go see it. I'm ready for it. But just on top of that, like, she should have been in the movies by now. Ready for her. And then, since we keep messing around with the Spider-Verse and the multiverse, Madam Web. For those of you who may not know, Madam Web is pretty much like the cosmic keeper of the Spider multiverse or whatever. Like, once Peter Parker started getting, involved with the multiverse and started dealing with the whole Spider-Verse of his whole situation, she comes in and kind of guides the different Spider-Mans in their individual universes to one another and helps them with life issues and shit. Like, Madam Web becomes an important character as the story progresses. And now that No Way Home has happened and we, have the characters are what they are as far as Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and then Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and all this other shit with the Spider-Verse, it's time for Madam Web to make an appearance at least, and give her grandmotherly, or not grandmotherly, but give us her aid and her advice and her assistance, because like I said, at this juncture in the series, like, she plays a huge role in pushing storylines forward once the Spider-Verse becomes a more permanent thing in the comics and in the cartoons. So now that we kind of here with the movies, it's time for Madam Web. I know they said she also supposed to get her own movie or whatever. I'm just saying, like, where is it? Because we going on Spider-Verse 2 at this point, and if we being real about it, Madam Web was supposed to be in Spider-Verse 1. As soon as they started traveling and traversing Spider-Verses, she's supposed to come through and like, hey, this is what y'all dealing with as far as fate and timelines and shit is concerned. Let me help y'all real quick. Let me give y'all some guidance so y'all don't fuck shit up. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is my job. But yeah, just some things that I'm looking forward to, or questioning about the future of shit, all of the Spider-Verse, the Sony one, and whatever they building out in the Disney MCU. Like, I'm just really, really proud of this movie. I'm happy that it happened. Like, it was extremely dope to see Tobey, Andrew, and Tom on screen together, and all of their storylines and everything, coming together. Like, just dope overall. Like, I'm really, really happy with this movie. Great, phenomenal movie. I can't stop giving it praise. It was just that good to me. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap right here. You know what I'm saying? You hit me on the socials at Brian Sav. That's BrianSapph. Instagram, Twitter. That's pretty much where I be talking at. Hit me up. Tell me what you thought about the movie. Like, let's have some dialogue around it. I'm cool with that. Did I say anything in my review that, raised your antennas and made you want to speak to me about it? If so, holla at me on one of them 2 social platforms. I will respond. I don't have no problem talking to strangers over the internet and people who have or share similar interests as myself. So come fuck with me. You listening to the Blurredcast, my Blurredcast, so you should have no problem just hitting me on the socials and hollering at me. It's cool. But appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you for all the continued love and support, everybody that listens and gives me feedback and just, inspires me to keep going. It's really, really dope. But I'm going to catch you on the next one. I think I got some more reviews to do and some other things I want to talk about, some exciting stuff happening that I want to share with the community. But I'll discuss that as it draws near. Until then, though, I'm going to catch y'all later. I'll at y'all in the next Blurredcast.